Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you, Eliza, for the lovely prayer. And thank you for telling me about the nuggets, Paul. I didn't know that. You
A
give me
pocket full.
you give me nuggets too in so many ways. So
Oh,
thank
bless you.
you for all you do as well. So I want to give a little bit of background. Reverend Jeff asked me if I would speak this month and gave me a couple of possible dates, and I picked one without really having a title for my talk or I knew the broader theme. But before I even knew how I was going to focus the talk started revealing itself. And the ideas started flowing and I just kept getting those little dings and those little inspirations and hit, and it just gradually and very naturally formed into a talk that is very different and unusual different from the ways I have usually presented. Um, so what has unfolded is that we're in a challenging time. Our theme is better together, and I know that there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of people who are suffering and struggling in different ways. And this subtitle of Building Bridges came to me in terms of let's do it. Let's build bridges where we have all of our differences and separation. Let's build bridges. We can do it. And so I'm going to share clips with you of three people that are coming through time. The earliest one is a woman named Corrie ten Boom from World War II era. The next one is President Carter brokering the Middle East peace accords in 1978. And the third one is a really wonderful interview with late Representative John Lewis. And all of these have certain things in common. After I show these three clips, I want to invite you to share thoughts, feelings, insights that may have arisen as you watch any of these. One thing might touch you more deeply than another. All of these have touched me deeply. And after we share for a period of time, after those three clips, I'm going to show you a fourth clip, which is going to be a surprise. And I think you'll see why I'm offering this one. And then we'll have another short period of sharing. And then we'll conclude the evening and I'll turn it back to Paul. So given that, I want to give you a little bit of background about the first person who I'm presenting, who is Corrie ten Boom. She was a woman who lived in Holland during the German invasion, and she was a devout Christian, as was every member of her family. And they sheltered Jews and they sheltered German defectors. And the clip shows a little bit um, of context. It gives you context leading up to, I'm going to show a clip of her speaking. And a little bit of background, which isn't shown in the clip, is that with all of these people that she was sheltering and helping and feeding and taking care of in so many ways, after a request for help, she fulfilled, she gave somebody the help they requested. It turned out that person was basically a spy, find out who was helping the Jews, and he turned her in. And her whole family was sent to the camp. And she was the only survivor. So with that, sorry, with that, I'm going to begin this clip. Oh, and there's one more thing. which she alludes to in the second portion of this, and that is that in later years she went to Berlin, and this man came up to her and told her that he had been saved. He had found his faith, and would she forgive him? And he had been one of her worst tormentors and one of the most cruel overseers in the camp. So this is, I'm going to begin the clip now.
On May 10, 1940, Nazi Germany forces invaded the Netherlands, overtaking the country in 5 days. On bombing raids, the German Luftwaffe dropped over 97 tons of explosives on the city of Rotterdam, forcing the Dutch to surrender. During the subsequent Nazi occupation, over 100,000 Dutch Jews would be rounded up and taken to concentration camps. Few would survive. In the face of these horrors, and at the threat of losing their own liberty, an elderly father and his 2 daughters risk everything to save the lives of these persecuted people.
You all have heard of that terrible time that we have had in Holland. And then when the Germans came under the leader Adolf Hitler, and he intended to kill all the Jewish people. We started to save as many as we could. I had never planned it, but God had planned it. After some time I had a gang of 80 people, 30 teenager boys, 20 teenager girls, 20 men and 10 women. And once we heard that in a Jewish orphanage in Amsterdam, all the babies had to be killed because they were Jewish babies. When we heard that, our boy said, we will save them and we will steal them. And they went to that orphanage and they stole all the 100 babies. You will say, how is it possible? I will tell you a secret. You know, sometimes there came to us good Germans and who were soldiers, who were in the army, and they said, we don't like to work any longer for Adolf Hitler. We will not kill the Jewish people. Can you help us? And I always said, sure, I will help you. Just come in. And we gave them, of course, civil clothing, and we took the uniforms. I have not to go into details, but you understand how my boys stole 100 babies. Hallelujah.
Now I'm going to advance this to another section of her speaking. And this is after this German Nazi has come and asked her for forgiveness.
The greatest of all is love. Say, can you forgive your enemies? I cannot, but Jesus in me can. And you will find out that forgiveness is a tremendous joy. For it is a key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hatred. It is a power that breaks the chains of bitterness and the shackles of selfishness. No, you and I have to be the light of the world.
So let's take a breath. Now I'm moving to my clip of Jimmy Carter.
War after war after war. In the middle of the last century, Egypt and Israel spent decades fighting over territory and security. In 1978, Jimmy Carter, an evangelical Christian and second-year president, put his prestige on the line.
A framework for peace in the Middle East.
Carter wrote long and personal letters to the Israeli and Egyptian heads of state, begging the enemies to come to America and talk.
The challenge is tremendous.
They agreed, setting the stage for a negotiation at the president's wilderness residence, Camp David.
At Camp David on a Maryland mountaintop.
Almost never in our history has a president devoted so much time on a single problem.
Carter studied psychological profiles of the men prepared by the CIA and State Department.
Prime Minister Begin of Israel.
Menachem Begin, a conservative who led a militant group at the nation's outset, had a loose grip on power.
President Sadat of Egypt.
Anwar Sadat, described by the CIA as a former revolutionary and
I'm asking you to make a donation right now to have your gift triple matched and help us flip.
Ardent nationalist, known for his realism, political acumen, and capacity for surprising, courageous, and dramatic decisions. With two fierce adversaries, my father, National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski, advised the president, "You will have to control the proceedings from the outset."
So, two fierce adversaries meeting together. I'm going to move ahead to President Carter speaking about his task in brokering this peace accord. The two people, Anwar Sadat and Begin, were loggerheads with each other, such that Carter realized they couldn't be in the same room together. Let's listen.
After the third day at Camp David, we had 13 days in all. As you said earlier, I never let them, the two, get together, Begin and Sadat. So I would go back and forth while Begin was asleep. I would talk to Sadat, and while Sadat was asleep, I would talk to Begin. So I didn't get much sleep. I think I lost about 15 pounds while I was at Camp David in the 13 days, and it was two people like Brzezinski who let me know what both sides wanted, and so I could try to accommodate them.
What do you want for the Middle East over the next 40 years, Mr. President?
Well, I want Israel and Egypt to stay at peace with each other. That's a key to the whole region, but I also want the Palestinians to have a chance to live a full and fruitful and enjoyable life. So that was one of the...
So that gives you a little bit of context of what was involved with his effort. Now I'm going to show you another clip of President Carter where he goes into an amazing story.
The last day was a turning point because we thought we had failed. And we were getting ready to leave Camp David in failure and go back to Washington and announce that we had not been successful. And Prime Minister Begin asked me if I would sign a photograph for his 8 grandchildren of me and Begin and Sadat. And I agreed to do it. And my secretary, whose name was Susan Clow, got the names of Begin's 8 grandchildren from Israel. She called over there and got their names. So instead of saying best wishes, Jimmy Carter, I said with love and best wishes to, and I put down his grandchild's name and I signed it. And I took it over to his cabin to tell him goodbye. when he opened the door, he was very angry with me. And he said, "Good afternoon, Mr. President." He was always very proper. And I said, "Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister, and I'm sorry we hadn't been successful. I brought the photographs you asked for," and I gave the photographs to him. And he turned around and said, "Thank you, sir." And then he looked down at the photographs, and he read out loud, "Love and best wishes to," and he read his grandchild's name. And he put that over in the back, and he read the next one's name. And he read the third one's name, and his chin began to quiver, and tears ran down his cheeks, and mine too. And he said, in effect, "Why don't we try one more time?"
Why don't we try one more time? And so now, I'm just going to say that there was the most jubilant, wonderful meeting of the three of them after they signed the accords, where they were embracing each other and they were holding each other's hands, and they were joyous with the success that they achieved after 13 days of negotiating with Begin, Prime Minister Begin, saying, "Let's try one more time." So let's take another breath. Now I'm going to share a clip from Democracy Now! Of Amy Goodman interviewing the late Representative John Lewis in 2012.
On May 9th, 1961, my seatmate, a young white gentleman, we arrived at the Greyhound bus station in Rock Hill, South Carolina. We got off the bus.
What were you doing there?
We were testing the facilities. The lunch counters, the waiting room, the restroom facility. During those days, the station was marked white waiting, colored waiting, white men, colored men, white women, colored women. And we were following a decision of the United States Supreme Court banning discrimination, segregation, and intrastate travel. And when we started to enter the so-called white waiting room, we were attacked by a group of young white men, beaten and left in a pool of blood. The local police officials came up and wanted to know whether we wanted to press charges. We said no. We believe in peace. We believe in love and nonviolence. Years later, to be exact, 48 years later, Mr. Wilson and his son came to my office in Washington and said, "Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you. Will you forgive me? I apologize." His son had been encouraging his father to do this. His son started crying. Mr. Wilson started crying. He hugged me. His son hugged me. I hugged them both back. And all three of us stood there crying. That's what the movement was about, to be reconciled.
When we hear about voting rights today, we don't hear about these struggles that you and so many others that you led went through 50 years ago.
That's why it is so important for people to understand, to know that people suffered, struggled. Some people bled and some died for the right to participate. You know, the vote is the most powerful, nonviolent tool that we have in a democratic society. It's precious, it's almost sacred. We have to use it. If not, we will lose it.
Okay, so now I am going to stop sharing and we're going to come back to the group. And I'd like to invite you to share some of your thoughts and feelings and things that might have come up for you from any one of the clips, or if you see a theme, what touched you? And you can just, I think the easiest way is to raise your hand like this, or you can go to participants and raise your hand. I don't think we're spotlighting people. We're just going to call on people. Oh, and you can turn your video on now so that we can see you, because I can't see whose hand is going up. Zoe? Oh.
Yes, very briefly. All I really wanted to say is the thing that struck me with the Jimmy Carter video was that the connection that was made in terms of humanity. It was him reaching out to another man, to another person, to a father. And I think that's really one of the keys for connection. It has nothing to do with finding the answer that everyone can agree with. It has nothing to do with convincing people. It has everything to do with recognizing the humanity and, as we look at it, of course, the divinity that is within all of us. I'm complete.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Zoe. That was also one of my thoughts on this human connection. Would anyone else like to share a thought or an insight or a feeling? Alice? Alice, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, the Jimmy Carter video, the thing that came to mind for me was, you know, you never know what one act of sincere kindness will do and the effect it will have on somebody. Because there was something about, he didn't just sign his name Jimmy Carter, he signed it Love Jimmy Carter. You know, and then just the fact that the tears started running, it's just so beautiful. It was just so beautiful. Thank you for showing that.
Yes, and that he made the effort. You know, that he even made the effort to find out the names of the grandchildren. And he acknowledged his secretary, which I thought was really interesting. He gave her name. And that both men, these leaders of countries, stood together weeping. You know, it was just, and okay, anyone else? Maureen, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. So what struck for me was all the things that everybody said, but also that it's reflective of what we're at, where we're at in our society right now, like the angst between, you know, two opposing sides. And so I saw that as, you know, the Egyptian guy and the other guy, I don't remember their names, but that they were, you know, completely on other sides of the coin. And then that someone, you know, kind of removed from the situation could come in and find a middle ground for them. And so what came out for me was that we've done this before. We've been there before with, you know, two opposing sides. We've seen it in the world, rather, right? And that there can be a middle ground. And it just takes a certain finesse, for, like President Carter, to be able to sit down and to really be almost removed, right, from the situation, but have loving kindness for humanity. And that's kind of where I went with that. And it was just basically reflective of what's happening in our country today. And I spoke with a couple friends, and they're saying that they think we're on the verge of a civil war and things like this. And then I watched the video, like you said, like you showed about the lady in Holland and stuff. I mean, I definitely don't think we're to that point. You know what I mean? So I think we're in times where we need to grow and things like that, but I don't see it as that. It's more implicit, obviously.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Maureen. Anyone else? Peggy.
Thank you. Thank you for all three of these absolutely phenomenal videos. I just had to say thank you first, because all three of them struck me in so many, moved me in so many ways. And one of the things that I decided I wanted to mention, perhaps is clear to everybody, but it's the oneness of all of us. The oneness is so clear in that we are all family. And the 10-year-old boys going to save the little boys, the babies, and Jimmy Carter's care and his real deep caring to take him one step further, to have his secretary, who he acknowledged, to get the names of all 8 of those children, and to be able to match the name with the photo and make sure that was in fact the right one. I mean, that takes a special kind of caring for another human being. And that's something that I think we can all be reminded of, which is exactly what in all three of those films somebody did. They showed caring for another, from one human being to another. That's such a divine connection that proves the truth of who we all are. There it is. If we've not seen another example, there's 3 of them, or 4 or 5, all rolled into one. Anyway, thank you so much, Judith, for this. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from one more person, and then I'm going to show the 4th video, which is in a very different vein. Would anyone else? Oh,
Linda.
You need to unmute.
And then Bonnie's next.
Okay, Linda and Bonnie. Okay, Linda, you're still muted.
I don't think so. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what struck me, thank you also, Judith. I think you're all wonderful. And what struck me, in addition to the heart that is in each one of these situations, there's also really courage. And particularly, I thought of the man that went to see John Lewis and what it actually took for him to do that. And then his heart burst open to get there, to get to those children in Holland, to get, to get to see the congressman isn't an easy thing, I don't think. And people, I think it's a combination of bravery and deep love for humanity that all of these situations reflect. And I have to say, one of the things I really loved about the Jimmy Carter story was when he described how he kept going back and forth between the 2 men while the other was sleeping. That was so funny. Think of these high-level negotiations, but really, it was sort of like, I don't know. I just thought that was very human and very interesting that a president would be doing it that way, and I loved that. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I want to just mention that he said he did that after 3 days. It took 3 days for him to realize these 2 men could not be in a room together. And so after 3 days, he separated them and wouldn't let them be in a room together. Yeah. Thank you, Linda. And then Bonnie.
I was just going to say, I've always, Jimmy Carter's always been a hero in a sense. I always felt that he was such a humanitarian. And I always felt that I'd like to live my life that way. You know, just truly kindness. He was just really kindness. And to see him on that video, and then I am just really tender and raw today from the shooting of Jacob Blake. I'm really tender. And watching those videos, especially with the Nazis invading and saying they're going out to, you know, kill all the Jewish babies. And I'm just wondering, I don't have any solutions for anyone, for anything tonight, but what is it going to take for us to get to that? What is it going to take? How many more people have to die? How many, I mean, there were 2 people killed in protests last night. What is it going to take? And it's wonderful to watch the videos. Maybe that gives us some insight, gives us something to aspire to. But we are in the middle of a crisis here. We are in the middle. We are in the middle. And I can only take from the videos that at that time there was hope. At that time, there were people that were willing to be vulnerable like Jimmy Carter and do those things. But what is it going to take right now? What is it going to take? As I said, my heart is really just broken, tender, and raw. So thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing me to just share what's in my heart.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'm going to move now to the 4th video, which may, well, we'll see, Bonnie. We'll see if it speaks to you. This is an interview that Oprah is doing with an extraordinary person. Sorry about this. If no one else is going to come on, I'm going to read out.
This is so interesting. He was just a baby in diapers when he started correcting other people's grammar. Sounds hard to believe. I thought it was hard to believe too, but by 18 months, this child could add and subtract. 18 months. And by the time he was 6, he was smarter than his own parents, and his parents knew it. And in 1 year, he went from 2nd grade to 8th grade. And he flew through high school in just 22 months. But that's just the beginning. This genius child started college, he just did, and he's only 10 years old. Take a look. He knew the alphabet by the time he could walk.
Hey, what comes after H?
He could tell you the history of the dinosaurs before he was 2.
This is the Jurassic period.
Greg Smith has been on the fast track to college from a very early age. He graduated from high school at 9 after completing grades 9 through 11 in just months. And he did that with honors.
This is for participating in the National Honor Society. This is for being in the top 10% of the class.
At the tender age of 10, Greg is now the youngest freshman ever at Randolph-Macon College in Virginia. His application was a shock.
So I'm going to advance this now to listening to Greg Smith speak.
Though with them, you talk about regular 10-year-old stuff.
That's correct. I try to bend to what they like as long as it doesn't break my beliefs.
Okay, and your beliefs being?
I am very passionate about nonviolence, having high morals, and a good education.
I understand. I've read that you like, philosophical conversations. Why do you think that you are the way you are, so smart?
I think I've been given a special gift from God. I don't know why or how I've been given this gift, but I want to use this gift to the best of my abilities to help mankind.
Oh, Janet and Bob say they knew the time would come when their son's intellectual ability would surpass theirs.
Now I'm going to move on to another section.
Should be. I was saying to Greg during the commercial break, those of you who saw the beginning of the show, and that what we all heard here, really profound statement that you want to use your talents. You understand that this is a gift. You don't know why, but use it to the best of your ability to help mankind. I think you have the power to do that.
Thank you.
Do you feel that yourself? That you can really make a big difference in the world?
Yes, I believe that you can make a big difference in the world. And I believe that the way to make this difference is through education. And especially because the first step to peace is through education. Because education breeds understanding, and understanding leads to alternative solutions.
Wow. I think you're right about that. I think you're really right. Tell me why you came up with the idea for your IEM nonviolence program, and how does that work?
Well, you look around and you hear about all the sad things, the bombings that go on, all the hate crimes, and it's all because someone doesn't like another for a certain reason. And I'm starting this program so I can figure out why they do this. Why do they want to hurt these people? And figure out a way to reverse this.
And so your program will do what specifically?
Right. First, I believe that that peace will also start with the children, and that if we can get the children to lose the hate, we can get the world to stop hating. And with that, we can make the world a much better place.
So now I want to bring us back to the group. And I found him so hopeful. I'd like to hear what some of you feel from him. You can unmute yourselves and turn your videos back on.
I'll go. This is TC, and I will make you all happy and not unmute myself. The first thing that came to my mind as he was talking was, like, this is a poster child for reincarnation. I mean, it's like his previous life was drenched in civil rights and nonviolence. Somewhere around the world, and then he shows up as this just amazing child with this connection to what he knew in his last life. It seems to me an easy explanation for the wisdom and the ease that he learned things. But it is very hopeful. I'd be really interested to find out where he is now. Because that was obviously a lot of years ago.
I don't know how, no, I don't think the I'm not sure how long ago it was, actually. I mean, it says 1999, but I'm not sure. I have to double check that. Yeah.
Well, that's
20
years ago, 21.
Yeah.
So
if
he
it
would
is,
now be in his mid-30s.
If it is, let's find out what he's doing now.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. But it's such an amazing message, and I think he's absolutely right. It's like the kids, usually, like, we older like the kids these days, but I am just rocking hope with what I see from the kids these days. They're growing up in this dystopian world, and they are, the survivors of gun violence who are advocating for votes for kids.
TC, I know, and there are so many young people that are very, very inspiring and that just look like shooting stars.
Yeah.
And I noted that the man who came and apologized 48 years later to John Lewis, was encouraged by his son.
Right.
His son was the impetus, and then he got there himself. It was the son who encouraged him to come.
Yeah.
So yes, and I think there are these souls coming into the world who are free souls, or who are enlightened souls, or who are, they're just some amazing beings coming in. And I think this boy at this age is one of them.
Yeah.
Thank you, TC. I'd like to ask one more person, and then I think we're going to turn it over back to Paul. And I have one more thing I want to say, but would anyone else? Peter, did you have your hand up? No?
I did. This is Peter.
Yeah.
I looked him up, and he is a postdoctoral drug researcher right now. So he's working on stuff that we need solved right now, it looks like to me. But that really gives me hope that there are leaders that are growing up and are emerging in our community. And I think that's something we can take to heart and be grateful for, that there are leaders. We have had great leaders, and we have leaders that are emerging now. And I'm praying certainly that they're going to emerge and help us through this difficult time in the different areas that we have it.
Thanks for looking that up. I appreciate it.
He did say in another part of this that he was going to complete 3 PhDs, and one of them was going to be in bioscience. So I think he probably did that.
So he's done that and more. Yeah.
One more person, and then we're going to close. I need to hand it back over to Paul soon. But
Yeah.
one more
Judith,
person. Yes.
in the chat, both Sherry Kramer and Teresa Gardinier said that they want to talk, but they can't unmute themselves.
Oh. No.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't say I wanted to talk. Thanks, DC. I just said I
just
couldn't,
that they couldn't
I
unmute
just-
themselves.
Yeah, I'm just listening tonight. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's the video that wouldn't undo.
Thank you, though.
Thank you. That was sweet. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I see Maureen waving. her hand.
Maureen would like, I know I already spoke, but I think that this comes full circle to what I was mentioning earlier, was that, although it's not the same, that horrid things have happened, and people were the light. And even if the larger consciousness at this moment is of darkness, there are these people that are in tune and tuned in to whose they are, and they don't lose the faith. And so they're the ones who kind of carry us through that. And so by us being those lights and continuing like this, we're going to carry through this. So I just look at it from historical perspective. It's happened before. It's not the same thing, but horrible things have happened before. And there's always people that are like amazingly in tune with whose they are. Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, and then these three.
You cut out, Maureen. But thank you. And as to piggyback on what you said, Maureen, in the first clip with Corey Tenboom, the clip concluded with, "We are the light. We are the light." And we each carry the light within us. And I think, Bonnie, I'm holding what you said, Bonnie, in my heart. I haven't been following the news the last few days, and I don't know about Jacob Blake. I'm really sorry I can't speak to it because I didn't hear that. But I understand. I got the feeling, and the sadness. And there's a lot of sadness now. Your sadness, there's a lot of grief, a lot of loss, a lot of sorrow. And I just want to remind us all that we are a community. We are here to support each other. We have the resource of prayer, and reach out. Reach out. And each one of us has to go through our own process. I mean, it's a tender time. It's a tender time. And so I would say, um, and then we have the fires. We have so much going on. And so I just want to be sure to emphasize and invite everyone to reach out, because we are a community. We do have each other. We're not alone. And, my topic was better together, building bridges with each other. And one of the things that came to me as I watched some of these clips was, a couple of them focused on forgiveness and asking myself, who do I need to forgive? Who do I need to forgive? And who do I need to apologize to? Build my own bridges, keep going, knowing that each one of us is carrying the light. So I'd like to thank you all.
I want to talk. I changed my mind just for one sentence. Can I say something?
Who? I can't hear who it is.
Sherry.
Okay, Sherry. Yeah, go ahead.
I changed my mind. Thank you. I just want to presence Reverend Jeff right now. I emailed him about my extreme sorrow and angst and everything about what was going on, a lot of which you have talked about. And he wrote this back to me, and I hope he doesn't mind my sharing it because it's general for everybody. He said, there is big, deep, profound sadness and mourning underway. I remember early on, 30 years ago maybe, Marianne Williamson said that we're all going to be asked to take a piece of your world on and to heal it. I think about that once in a while too. It feels like that could be a reasonable piece of this navigation we're all going through. Basically, he said, okay, be gentle with you, my friend, and with everyone else too. And I just wanted to put that because it felt really real to me. I was being quiet tonight because of all of that's going on with the Wisconsin and everywhere else. And Bonnie, I hear you. And but I just wanted to say, Reverend Jeff is saying that to all of us. I believe it wasn't just to me.
Thank you, Sherry. And that's just such a fitting conclusion. So thank you all for your time and attention, and let's be here for each other.